Hey creeps, welcome back to Library Macabre. Today I have for you something a little bit different than usual. Never made a video like this before. I'm going to be shopping my shelves. What is that? I mean, you often see me going out to used bookstores and shopping those shelves, but why not, for a change, appreciate the things I have in my own house versus going out and just buying more stuff like a hopeless consumer. Now, I don't usually do TBRs anymore, to be read lists, because I never stick to it. I'll always get a big pile of things that I want to read, and then I don't read any of it. I end up just reading other things because I'm a bit of a mood reader myself. So TBR videos, they just don't happen. But this is a special exception because old school April is like here. It's time to start choosing my reads for old school April. And for those who don't know what old school April is, for one, I made a big video about it. It's gonna be up here so you can go and get the deets on this readathon, watchathon, nostalgiathon. Old school April is created by Kelsey from Slime and Slashers, and it is an event that I look forward to every single year. This is the kind of stuff that I love, nostalgic books, nostalgic movies, stuff that I grew up reading and watching. This is the stuff that has made me into the person that I am today, and I am so excited to dig back into old school April and start reading some nostalgic books and watching some nostalgic films. Today we're not going to be talking about films though. We're going to be talking just about books and trying to get my TBR planned out, mapped out for old school April. And I am prepared with prompts. I have printables here, which I printed off of the Old School April Google Drive. You can access all of that in my other video. This is everything that I'm gonna be using to choose my TBR today. We're gonna just be going around the library trying to figure out books that I can match up to these prompts. We're ready to go. Got my nostalgic shirt on for today, and we are going to choose some books. So let's see what prompt we should go for first. Let's start with Goosebumps, because we all know I love Goosebumps, and that's pretty easy. I have all my Goosebumps books over here underneath my Autumn Crow High painting. Autumn Crow High is my book, by the way. If you want to check this out, Old School April is a good time. This book takes place in the 90s, so it's got all of those point horror, Fear Street kind of vibes. Kelsey has actually chosen this as her host recommendation, so you can get extra points for reading this. Just saying, just putting it out there. All right, let's go over to the Goosebumps shelf and pick out a Goosebumps book. All right, so now we are over at the Goosebumps shelf, and I really don't know if I want to read an original Goosebumps book because I'm gonna be doing a Goosebumps chronological read through of all of these very soon, and that's also going to be a vlog, so maybe I should go ahead and just save all of the original Goosebumps books. I've already read most of those anyway. I'm also going to do something really similar for series 2000, so I'm going to go ahead and save all of those too and maybe read something else. Let's see, I'm thinking maybe possibly I could do Tales to Give You Goosebumps, because I've actually not read very many of these. I've probably read a few short stories from each of these books. This is the first one, Tales to Give You Goosebumps, and also it's short stories, so I could always just dip into it here and there throughout the month and read a short story here and there. I wouldn't even have to read it straight through. All right, so just like that, we have our very first pick, Tales to Give You Goosebumps, Volume 1, Mall of America. A mall is featured in the book or story. I have a good one for that. Let me find it. It's down here somewhere. This is Secrets of the Shopping Mall by Richard Peck. Now, this is one that I had been looking for a long time. I wanted it in this specific edition, which is a first edition paperback. I had wanted this so bad, and I kept looking for it on eBay, and it was kind of expensive, and it was hard to find one in good shape. And then I randomly discovered one at a bookstore, and look at it. It's in beautiful condition, and it was so cheap. It was like 79 cents, and it's a first print, and I'm just like, so excited. Now, I might actually grab a couple of different mall books for this prompt. You can double up, it's totally fine. But this just has such a spooky cover, and it's been such a long time since I've read any Richard Peck. I read Are You in the House Alone when I was a kid, The Ghost Belonged to Me, and this one looks really cool. So Secrets of the Shopping Mall, that's book number 2. And like I said, there are some other mall books that I would like to possibly read. Now we're going over to my shelf here that's in the middle of the room. It has all of my young adult horror books on it. Now, as you can see, I have my blue light on this, which kind of functions as a black light because a lot of these neon colors are really popping, which looks cool, but it's also a little harsh and glary, so forgive me. There is a book on this shelf somewhere called The Mall. There it is. It's right back here. It's by Richie Tankersley Cusick, who's an author that I have a lot of books from, but I've not actually read a lot of them. I actually have the UK edition down here as well, which also has a really stellar cover. You can let me know down below in the graveyard which cover you prefer. I'm not really sure. I love this cover, but this one is also really cool. I love the colors. And coming over here to my middle grade horror section, we have a lot of my Goosebumps knockoff books, and I use the word knockoff very endearingly. We also have Bone Chillers, Beware the Shopping Mall, which is book number 1 in the Bone Chiller series. I have read this, but I read this when I was a kid, and I remembered nothing about it, so this could be a fun one to read. That's probably all I really need for the mall prompt. So let's look at our list and see what else we can find. Read a book over 300 pages. We're not going to do that because I don't have that kind of time in April. I need to be pumping out books. Let's look for read a Chris Pike, Fear Street, or Point horror book. So we're going to go back over to this shelf. Now, when it comes to Fear Street, I'm actually vlogging my chronological read through of all the Fear Street books. So I'm saving those so that way I can actually read them in a vlog. So we're not going to do any Fear Street, at least no original Fear Street books. So maybe instead we should do a Christopher Pike, or let's do a Point horror. I haven't read a Point horror in what feels like a really long time. So let's take a look at my Point horror shelves. I have like 150 of these things, maybe more. But which one am I going to read? This is the question. I have Point horror books behind all of these. I have even more Point horror books back here behind these. There's so many to choose from. Here are all of my UK Point books. Let's take a look down here. I've never read any of these Point Unleashed books, nor have I read any of the Mutant Point horror. Maybe, let's get these out of the way. Maybe I can read The Hanging Tree, which is a Point Horror Unleashed book. Heard really good things about this one. It looks actually like genuinely scary. Let's take a look at the synopsis first. Trees are sacred, roads are the devil's work. That's why Willow joins the protest against the Bridgemorton bypass. Camped out beneath an ancient oak, though, she's suddenly not so sure. There's something demonic about the oak. Terrible images of hanged bodies and burning witches haunt Willow. Protesters plummet from the tree branches or die from fear amongst its roots. Then Willow is shown the most hellish vision of all. An almighty reckoning is nigh. Yeah, let's read The Hanging Tree. That sounds too good. Too good for Point horror, maybe. And my Nancy Drew books are staring at me from the shelves over here, so I'm thinking maybe I can read a Nancy Drew book of some kind. I'm also reading all of the original Nancy Drew books from beginning to end. I'm only a few books into that. So maybe I can choose from one of the spin-off series. I have been wanting to read some of the Nancy Drew Files books, which are from the 80s and 90s, and they're really cheesy looking, but I've not really read too many of those in my lifetime, maybe one or two. So I'm thinking let's choose a Nancy Drew book which would go perfectly with the Buffy prompt. Read a book written by a woman or with a female protagonist. So here are all of my Nancy Drew Files books. As you can see, I've collected a lot of them over the years. So let's pick out one of these. I don't know which one. I would go for book 1, but I actually don't own book 1. It's like one of the few that I don't own. Oh, I have an idea. I have a great idea, actually. I used to play the Nancy Drew PC games. I don't know if any of you guys ever played those, but they were my bread and butter growing up. I loved those games. And a lot of those games were actually based off of Nancy Drew Files books. So let me find one. There's gotta be one here somewhere. Oh, let's see. The final scene is actually based off of one of these, and that's one of my favorite Nancy Drew games. So that could be a fun one to read. Ah, here it is. I found it. It took a minute, but I finally found the final scene. See, look how cheesy and wonderful these books look. So there we go. We already have a nice little stack of books going for Old School April. I think we're doing well. Let's just challenge myself. a little bit here, and let's do The Young and the Restless. Read a romance, a smut book, or a saucy book. I'm not gonna do smut. I don't know how saucy it's gonna be. I'm not a romance reader. Let's just start there. But I do have some Harlequin romance books that I've picked up in recent months. These are from the Harlequin Shadows series, so it's a little bit of a spooky, mysterious angle. You're dealing with werewolves and vampires and ghosts, all of that fun, delightful stuff that I, as a horror fan, love. Let's go over here and take a look. Here we go. We have our Harlequin books over here. It's not too many of them, just a little stack. And some other Enchanting Kittens, which is like a Regency romance book. I just love the cover because I love kittens. Let's take a look at these first and see if maybe I can read one of these, because I'm actually pretty curious about them overall. I mean, just look at that. This one here is actually pretty cool to me. It's a vampire novel called Burning Times, and it actually has kind of a kick-ass cover, I have to say. And another great thing about this book is that it still has the weird little scratch-off insert, which came in most of these romance books back in the day. So I love that. I love that it's still in here. So there is my romance book. You know what? What the hell? Hold on one second. I'm gonna add it to my pile. What else? I have so much to choose from. Most of the books in my collection are vintage, so any of them really count. I'm gonna just walk around my library for a minute and just kind of look and see, oh, okay, what are some potential books that I can show you, because I don't want to waste your time. So let's kind of just walk around together and take a little assessment of the library. Okay, I have an idea. I would love to read one of these scary stories for sleepovers. This isn't scary stories to tell in the dark. Scary stories for sleepovers is kind of a knockoff of that. I've not read any of these since I was a kid, so it's been a very long time. It could be really fun to read one of these or one of the various spin-off books of those. We have Bone-Chilling Tales of Fright. We have Scary Stories for Stormy Nights. We have Scary Stories for When You're Home Alone. We have the Book of Nightmares. We have 3-minute thrillers, 3-minute fright, or 5-minute frights. Actually, heard great things about 5-minute frights. This could be a really fun one to read. I've never read it before, and I hear that it's really gruesome and scary. So this could be a book that will give you nightmares, the Freddy's Nightmares prompt. This could fulfill that. And then all the way up here, stacked on top, we've got some books that I've just not had time to shelve yet. And I have a series up here called Spine Chillers, aka Spine Chillers Mysteries, which is like a Christian Goosebumps knockoff, which could be really fun to get into. And there's actually one with a clown on the cover. Let me grab it. This would be a great one for the book with a clown on the cover prompt. Just look at this. Christian Goosebumps. There we go. That fulfills the prompt. And actually, while we're in this corner, here is a book in the Scareville series, which is a brand new series, but it's kind of a Goosebumps throwback. And I've been wanting to read these for a while, and this would fulfill the Halloween prompt, a book that takes place on or around Halloween. We also have the Time Warp prompt, which any of these books would really fit. Read a book set in the 80s or 90s, or a book with a nostalgic vibe. That's any of these books. But I do have something that I could add to the TBR that could be really fun. And that is out of the library. We're actually going to go through my apartment and find yet another bookcase with more books that is outside of my library. When they use the term book dragon, they're actually referring to me. So over here, we've got my Sweet Valley collection, as well as Babysitter's Club, and all of these, teen cutesy, romancy, contemporary books. I've got a lot of Sweet Valley, and I would love to read Sweet Valley #2, Secrets. Last year for Old School April, I read book 1 and loved it. And while we're in here, I'm gonna go ahead and take the next Babysitter's Club book I need to read, which is book 4, Marianne Saves the Day, because I love Babysitter's Club. These are just so cozy and wonderful and wholesome, and my soul needs that. So let's take both of these. That's a pretty good stack. Do I need to choose any more? Maybe I should at least choose a Hardy Boys book to go with Nancy Drew. And then maybe after that, I can be satisfied with all of the books for Old School April. Hardy Boys is actually right behind your head here, so I'm just gonna reach behind you, don't mind me. I think I'm going to read Web of Horror, which is book 53 in the Hardy Boys Case Files series, which was released to coincide with Nancy Drew Files, more of the edgier mysteries. And this one obviously has a horror angle. In fact, it's focusing on a series of cult horror films called the Horror House series. So Horror House 5 is in production and the Hardys are on the set. And of course they have a mystery they need to solve revolving around a cold-blooded killer. So yes, please. This sounds awesome, and it's short, so I can get through it quick. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read all of these, so this is just literally a pile of possibilities, as they call it. But I am going to try to read every single one of these. I hope I can, and I think I'm going to have a blast reading these, because this kind of stuff nurtured me and raised me into the person that I am. Goosebumps, Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, Fear Street, Point Horror, Christopher Pike. Those books meant so much to me as a kid, and to just spend a whole month reading nothing but that stuff is gonna be a blast. So thank you, Kelsey. I can't tell you how much this event truly means to me. Thank you everybody for watching. Let me know what you thought of all of my picks here and what you're most excited for me to read. I mean, I know all of you are going to say you're most excited for me to read Enchanting Kittens. I know it. Thank you all again for watching. Thank you to my patrons for supporting me and making sure that this channel can be a reality. And I will catch you in the next episode of Library Macabre. Later, creeps.